Anders.
And
We talked about this for a while. Now we're here.
that's right.
How's it going?
Good.
I have a question for you. It's actually a two-part question, but I'll save part two after you answer part one. You played for 8 different NHL teams.
Correct.
You won a cup with Detroit.
Yes.
Why didn't you win one as a Leaf?
How much time do we have?
All the time you want.
Right. No, Detroit started something unique by bringing in the Russian Fives, changed the game, I believe, how it's played for a long time, many decades. They came in and kept in a puck possession kind of game. I think that was like, holy crap from the other teams when they saw that happen. There was not coming over the red line, dumping in and so forth. I was there for 2 years when they won. I was not on the first cup. I got sent home. I hurt my back. Came back, played. Opportunity to come to Toronto. I had a couple of teams. I played here in Florida, actually, and I became a free agent. I talked to Mats, Sundin, and the opportunity to play for such an amazing empire, I would say, of hockey, the mecca of hockey, was something that was a big challenge. I knew it was going to be tough with media, fans. Everybody's, dying to win the cup. It was interesting to be there. I think the hardest part probably is that the media have a lot of power of who comes and not comes and who gets. You need a strong person to be able to be a captain. If you look at the captains, has been part of the Leafs over the last 20 years, are very strong. They back up what they do. They don't promise too much. They over deliver what they do. I hope they win it. I think they have a right staff involved right now with Toronto, with Shanahan been around, and even the coaching staff has been around, because everything has evolved with hockey,
right?
How it's played, who is playing, what has happened that's now come out of the box that people are trying to hide,
right,
with a lot of things, with abuse, this and that and the other. I hope they win it, and whoever's part of that is going to be.
So that's my next question. What do you think it would have been like? And this is not the context of the podcast, but it's something I've been meaning to ask you. What do you think it would have been like for you if you would have won the cup as a Leaf?
Well, I got a taste of it when we were there, where we went to the semifinals and we won. I believe it was Ottawa at home, and I lived downtown.
I was part of that group that you're about to talk about, by the way.
And obviously it was amazing. One at home, great. Normal driving time, 15 minutes. And when that happened, people were celebrating like they won the cup. It took me close to 2 hours to get home. And it was great to see. And I think for them to get a taste of it, and then sort of we lost against Carolina at home. We should have won that. And that I believe would have been an epic Stanley Cup final. It would have been against the Red Wings. But 2
original 6s.
Right. So being part of that, you see the diehard fans and they deserve it. It's been a long time. And
yeah, there's this whole, conspiracy about fear of winning, kind of like the Blue Jays, where they won a couple and then people stop showing up. They think, that may happen in Leafs. I don't believe that that's even possible, because those season tickets are sold corporately, for the next 10 years.
I think, sort of what happens with all markets. I was lucky enough. The only old rink, if you want to, was I never got to play in Chicago. I missed that with a year. Other than that, I played in the old Garden, like Leafs, Montreal, Boston, like all the old places. And it was different. Especially Maple Leaf Garden was amazing. You got in, you sit on the bench, and people are walking behind you, spilling beer, and So that was my first year, and I'm like, wow,
right.
Okay. So go ahead.
You had mentioned you played for 8 teams, and Toronto, if I'm not mistaken, was not, or Florida was not your last team that you played for, correct?
No, so I'll give the recap.
Okay.
We go. So,
you remember it?
Oh yeah, I do. Drafted 93 by Detroit. Came over 95. Stayed with Detroit until 99 when I got traded for Chris Chelios, 2 first rounders to go to Chicago. played in Chicago a little bit over a year. Negotiations. We won our arbitrations, myself and Brian McCabe. And we got traded shortly after.
Brian's here now as well.
Brian's still here, yeah. And came here to Florida, and there was great opportunity as well. I enjoyed Chicago, one of the best cities, I think, to live in. And they've got really good fans, as you can see now when they have some success. Had a lot of success, I should say. Came down here and had an opportunity to go to Anaheim. Also, Pat Quinn, former Pat Quinn, love him to death, called me up and said, I watched you play. I'm like, when? He goes, well, you had a game up here and we had overtime. You played 29 minutes. I want you to play for me. I'm like, that's what you based this on? He goes, yeah. So they offered me a 3-year deal. I called Anaheim and said, can you match? Can you do this? And then I talked to Mats. Then I went to Toronto. After Toronto, 2 years in, Pat goes, hey, it's not working. We're like, no, it's not. It's not working at all. He goes, well, what do you want? I said, well, you can trade me. You can buy me out. Let me go. And he said, well, I'll buy you out. He goes, it's not your fault. It's not our fault. It's just not the match. So then I signed with Columbus. I was there, and then it was a lockout. Then I went over to Russia because I couldn't agree a contract with either Columbus or Calgary. Magnitogorsk. And I met Mr. Malkin and Kulemin, who came to Toronto.
Yeah. He played for the Leafs.
Yeah. And then Yuskevich was there. Korolev was there.
Oh, wow.
Like we had and then we had Dave King as our coach. So the opportunity, I was trying to figure out where can I go, and King called, Dave called me and said, hey, we're going to go to Switzerland and play the Spengler Cup. So I went over, liked it, went over to Magnitogorsk, lived in Russia for 4+ months. It was truly one of my top bucket lists.
Really?
To do that? Yeah.
In Magnitogorsk?
Well, in Russia in general.
Right. Wow.
But it was, because I grew up not wanting, wanted to play in the national team and played against the Russians in the World Championship. That was my dream. NHL came on later on, and here you are. So that was a bucket list. And I was playing with the Russians and talking to them and what they went through and how they, did everything in Russia was really cool. So when we got there, we got to stay in the Baza, which means you're fenced in. They shut the doors. You're not allowed to leave the day before the game. And you get food, you can work out, you sleep, that's it. And it was, a big bucket list. And after that, I came back. Columbus wanted me to come back, stay with Columbus. And I signed with Calgary, which the first time in with Columbus, I talked to Big D, Daryl Sutter, and he goes, you're going to play for me one day. I'm going, I am not the kind of player you like. I moved the puck, not really hitting that. He goes, you're going to play for me. I'm like, all right. So long story short, signed with them a 2-year deal. Same thing there. He goes, it's not going to work out. I'm like, no. So I went down to the minors, and then I got a staph infection. After that year, I had surgery on it, and it spread, and I was about to lose my foot.
Wow.
And I was at Mount Sinai in Toronto. Johnny Lau was my doctor, very paramedic, huge, amazing doctor. Thank you very much for saving my foot. And after that, it was sort of, what do I do now? Right. So I was going to go to training camp with Phoenix, with Dave King. Obviously this happened, so that didn't happen. And then I went to Tampa trying to, to their minor league team just to skate. Ended up signing with Phoenix, played, I guess, 8, 9 games, 11 games. And deadline came around. And I asked, hey, dude, this probably will be my last year in the NHL. Like, is there any interest of doing this? And they were great. They said, well, Calgary's interested and Rangers. I'm like, well, let's go to Rangers. I did Calgary, and the opportunities are great at both. Went there, ended up playing the last 9, 10 games. We had a heck of a run. We lost to Philly. Went to a shootout. We have Hank and Henrik Lundqvist. I'm like, this is in the bag now. We ended up losing. I don't know
Funny
how
that works,
yeah, right. And after that, it was kind of you have a staph infection. You didn't really play, and I respect it. I understand it, and so I went over to Sweden, played a year and a half, 2 years there, and then I was
Modo.
I went first home. I wanted to go to Modo, but they had too many imports per se. But there were Swedes, so I went to Timrå, which was one of the competitors. And after I was done with my first stint, I went to Modo. We played. We went to regulation round to almost get kicked out of the elite league. We won, stayed in, and that was it. So at least
so it's like in football, soccer,
right? Yeah. So you had 12 teams.
You get relegated if you don't win.
Correct.
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
interesting.
we ended up winning.
That's a good
last
motivation.
game, and it was almost like we won the championship. But it was like, oh, thank God, I wasn't part of that. Right. But no. So it's been a journey. So the last, I would say, 3 teams is sort of like I played 3 games here, 7 games there. But again, hey, I don't know, but it's more than that. I think in Nylander, Mike has probably played the same thing. Michael, I think he played about 7 or 8 or 9.
Is he in Florida too?
No, he's back home.
Look, and that's kind of like the context in which we kind of got started, obviously, about doing the podcast as well is I'm I call myself a refugee, moving from Canada about 8 months ago into South Florida. And what I find from a hockey perspective, my son playing travel hockey for you with the Florida Kings, there is this overwhelming question that I have with many parents since we've moved to South Florida. My wife and I field calls all the time from people, specifically from Toronto, asking about our journey, what's going on. Women are asking about schools and speaking to my wife and asking, the important things. And the dads are asking me about sports, more specifically hockey.
Right.
And everyone coming down from Toronto is familiar with the GTHO, which is arguably, one of the best amateur programs on earth.
It's very, very good.
It is a feeder into the OHL, into D1 hockey, and ultimately down the path. And I'm sure that statistically it's overwhelmingly skewed to Canadians making the show, making the NHL via the Greater Toronto area. I remember watching my nephew when he went through, and the minor midget year, the year they get drafted, they kind of all show up in that year, and so they can showcase. But you've been to so many places and have had so many adventures as a professional athlete, which carried you all around. And yet you still ended up in South Florida. And so I mentioned it wasn't your final destination. What drew you specifically to Florida? And you obviously decided to make this home.
Well, we as a family like California. California is pretty far away. And Florida was sort of the middle part between Toronto here and Sweden. Easy access for my family to fly over, for my ex-wife's family to fly down, the grandparents and uncles from Toronto to come down and see the kids. I always had a lot of friends outside of hockey here. My first time in Florida, I think it was in 92 or 93. I did a hockey training camp here for about a month or so. Met a gentleman named Dave Farber, took care of me, handled it. And that same trip, Radek Dvorak was here. There was about five of us came here. Majority of them were Czechs. Straka was here, I believe. And who else? Anyway, so that's how I met Radek. We had the same agent. And then we made the decision as a family that, hey, are we staying in Toronto or are we going somewhere else? Sweden was sort of kind of out of I wanted to stay on this side. And then Florida was an easy choice. A lot of friends outside hockey, and then see what happens. And fast forwarding, I'm still in hockey. and doing that. So
look, so when I speak to the dads about hockey, and it's a legitimate concern because a lot of them have kids that are playing AAA, AA. So they're playing hockey at its highest level for their age group. And they're asking me, what's the landscape like here in Florida? And I told them, for me, it's trial by fire. And I have skated my son, Kobe, in every single rink, I'd say, within an hour radius of my home. And Radik Dvorak actually happens to be my neighbor. I know. Yeah. So I walk the dog, I say hi to him. And it was funny how you and I also connected. And when I talk to them, I say, look, Floridians from a hockey perspective do not understand the abundance of riches that is available to them in the form of professional hockey players, and how many of them are here and how many of them are on the ice with their kids. The overwhelming value that I see as a hockey dad watching my son skate at Boca Ice, which is a state-of-the-art facility just opened, and Florida Kings, is I have God knows how many years on professional experience, people who have seen the entire process all the way to its apex,
right,
on the ice with my son. Whereby in Toronto, first of all, guys that played or play in the show don't do that because they can't walk the streets pretty much,
Yeah.
And if they are, the pricing for what you're getting, it's astronomical if you can get it. For by here, the amount of value that is offered by you guys, specifically with the Kings, is, it's incredible. It's unheard of from somebody who understands the landscape coming from Toronto to Florida. It's incredible. So when I tell the dads, I'm like, you have no idea, the kind of quality that you're getting here, and people don't understand Florida as a market when it comes to hockey. The flip side of that coin is the lack of consistency throughout rinks, which I've been through. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's part of the learning curve for me, and I've skated my son everywhere. It's also, what I find baffling is, I think statistically USA Hockey has more amateur hockey players registered in Florida than any other state, but there isn't a community rink whereby one rink allows every single kid of every age group to play against their age group. So if you're a 17 or an 18 or a 19, to play all together, because each rink owns their rec or house league, which is,
right,
in Canada. And as opposed to having all these kids come in together, play at their age group to see where they size up, versus, my son is a 5-year-old playing 8U because that's the only level available for him at this point. Right. And he can't really play in another rec program in another rink because that rink owns that rec program. As opposed to in Toronto, you got all these community rinks and you got hundreds of kids. Right. So from what I understand, statistically, the kids are here, but hockey hasn't really developed into this like sport where people still get it. Like, it probably falls 15 on the radar of things.
Yeah, excuse me. I think the hardest part here is, like you said, we have in this southeast region where we're at, from Kendall down by Miami up to West Palm Beach, you have 7 organizations. And kids are picked obviously through tryouts. But people also drive from Kendall to come and play, let's say, in West Palm Beach.
Mm-hmm.
That's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I feel, why wouldn't they be able to? It's a lot of kids down in Kendall. Like, you guys keep that area. So it becomes more available to who you are. And I think everybody's trying to go into the AA, AAA at a very young age. And it's so important. What I believe, this is truly what I believe, is let the kids fall in love with the game. And like you said, you got to organize so you have the 5-6-year-olds that are the size and the talent where they're at to be able to play against the same. And then 6, 7, 7, 8, and let them fail and let them develop, let them understand that, it's okay to get knocked down, you get up. And it's okay to lose because we got to learn from it. And I'm not saying Florida is a lot different than anywhere else, but it becomes very, like you said, here is, for example, like the Kings could be like nobody else is allowed to come in. We have people come in and try our practices. You were one of them. Can I come and try? Like, sure, absolutely, come and see what we do. And I think 2 or 3 practices went by. I say, I want to pay for it. I'm like, that's fine. But see, we want to make sure that you really like this. And for us, it's the family environment, the culture of it. And I think because of the coaches we do have has been here now with us for 5 years. Radika's joined. We have Thomas Vukun as our goalie coach.
Yeah, that goalie coach, Thomas Vukun, one-on-one with your goalies.
Right.
And there's no rink that can
post. And Ryan Clough came in. He lived here, obviously played here, and he comes and goes. His son has started, and he asks if he can be on the ice, and I go, well, duh, of course. And just to have that, and it's not that we pushing the kids into, if you don't do this, you're not going to make the NHL. Like, that's not the conversation. The conversation is more like, this happens to me. I've been here. I know how it feels. You almost know how they're going to react before they do because you did it. Right. And the older they get, the more true to that is that's what happened. And you can see when they go from 12 to 13, 14, adolescence comes in, and now it's a lot of hormones, and it's, and you're going 5 seconds to your assistant coach and going, what? Just wait, 3, 4, 2, 1. I'm like, what happened? Well, he got hit behind the net and he got really upset and he just literally targeted the guy. And if you can teach them that's going to happen. I did that. And that is our program is development, and we are truly a development program. We're not going to win all the time. And we try to do a lot of practice ratio to games. So for us, practices are the coaches or the teachers, I like to call them, our time. It's 1 hour, 3 times a week or 4 times a week. And then when it's a game, like, here, go out and show us what you do. And not screaming, yelling, because at the age until you get to the point, in my mind, when you get to the point of you get into college, well, now it's different. Now it's really, really, really competitive. Or you get to university, or you go to D1.
Yeah.
And almost, I want to say, until somebody pays you, I can't scream at you. You know what I mean? Like, because at the end of the day, like the parents come to us because I feel we have a very, very good program. I think we have the right coaches. We have the right families. I think it's very easy to come on and see what we do differently.
I can tell you, and this is ironically probably more my wife's words than mine. It's funny that I'm even saying that, is that having skated my son at different arenas, and I know he's only 5 years old, but my kids, he loves being on the ice. He's coachable. He's good at what he does. I can leave him there for hours, and he's good. Like, it's a different vibe at Boca Ice in Florida Kings. It's a different vibe among the coaches. It's a different vibe around the parents, I found, and other locations for travel hockey like yours. You had parents coaching the overwhelming majority of the time, which I found baffling, because in Toronto, it's a job, and it's, it might not be your full-time job, but it's something you are dedicated to as much as you are, or the parents will eat you alive. The vibe that we get is way better. The parents, I think you're also, kind of selective in who will ultimately end up there over a long-term scale of the Kings. But like, where do you see the Kings? This is year 1 of its inception. It's in the inception year. 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Right. Well,
relative to the landscape here in South Florida, and hockey in general in South Florida, because you've got Torontonians, New Yorkers, Bostonians, Jersey, hockey hotbeds moving to South Florida. Like, there is an exodus into South Florida.
Yes. I think over the last 2 years, there's a couple of million people or so have moved down here. Right?
And there is a backlog. One of my guests is going to be my immigration lawyer. He's just away here, and we're talking, and there is a backlog in visas, and that's for the Canadians. The Americans are free to go.
Right. Going back to where we're at in 3 to 5 years. Well, we did that with another youth organization, myself and Joe Lisavsky, and our coaches. And we got there. The 5-year plan sort of happened in 3 years. For whatever reason, I stepped down. It was sort of going the wrong way. And we had a good talk with the owners, Hal and Jake, at the Boca rink. And all in all said, a lot of the parents from the former organization came with us. So I don't look at this as, hey, this is the first year or second year. This is more the 4th and 5th year for us, because we have the same, like a lot of parents came. And we're very thankful for it, though we didn't ask them to come. We're trying to expand hockey in Florida and not, moving around to each and every group down here. And that's sort of what's happening. And I understand to a point that, hey, well, you're 16, 17, this is the last year you want to have an opportunity to win states. Great, and go to nationals. But in the idea with this is to get a really good learn to skate, learn to play program.
Right.
And few of the organization does a great job with it. And they do a good job in general. And my view on it is a little different. And it's always been, and I could be wrong, totally wrong, but I like where we were going. And I believe we're getting the same route now here, that you also get part of the environment you're in. So you can't knock and say, well, they're crazy, or we don't want to take them because they play for this organization. That's not what we do. But we come in and I think if people can come in and try and see how we are and how we teach, and I think that would change their mind.
And there's no doubt, that there is a lot of development going on, and speak specifically to the capacity of the coaches that are there and the experience that they have versus parent coaches or somebody who's played for 8 NHL franchises. Plus, you got Radek Dvorak, Klo, and Coach Ioni. And I'm not sure where he played, but I mean, there's obviously professional experience there. But from parents that they have their son or daughter playing AAA in upstate New York or in Toronto or Mississauga or wherever it may be, that are thinking, look, we want to move down here, but we're just not sure of the hockey landscape and what that's going to mean for our kid. And that could be truthfully one of the reasons why they don't move, even though they don't agree with a lot of the things that's happening up north, politics, etc., which we could get into, but it's not the context of, neither of our expertise. What would you tell those parents?
Well, the AAA or Tier 1 here is one entity who does it. I believe that obviously the level of hockey, Tier 1 hockey here, or even travel hockey, is not as it is up north. And I believe obviously the reason is you have a tryout for U14 AA in Toronto, you have 400 kids showing up. That's different down here. And you got to grow it slow and steady in Florida. And you got to start somewhere. The Tier 1 they have here, it's Alliance.
Is that the Alliance? That's a 14U only?
I think it goes from 12 and up.
Okay. How do you make an Alliance team?
Well, they have tryouts, and then they're obviously tournament team. I think they practice a couple of times a week and go on tournaments and so forth, and you pay for it. Yeah,
but are you selected from the different travel organizations?
No, I think it's just tryouts.
Okay. Do you need to get invited, or you just show
up? Both, I believe. And so, I mean, that's something we would like to do.
Is that in?
Yeah, I would like to have the opportunity to do it. I think the thought behind when the Alliance started, I think it's a good idea, because it was very watered down. Everybody had a AAA Tier 1 team, which means honestly, that was probably
define what you mean by everybody.
All the teams back 20 years ago.
So all the different
travel,
rinks had a AAA team.
They had a AAA team, but then it was sort of watered down, right? Like, or 4 or 5 player went to one team, and then all of a sudden they beat everybody 15-0. So the competitiveness or the evolution of it is not going to get there if that's what's happening. But if you can have teams that are very compatible, you win and lose some, it's odd number games. I mean, and result, then everybody going to push themselves. But I mean, if you're on a team that wins 10-0 every game, why do you have to push yourself? Because you're best in Florida. So I always, my philosophy, why I'm saying this, and this is not a shot at anybody, is I played in Sweden from a small little town. I was good.
Clearly.
Right. And, but then I got elected to get into to make it simple, the top academy in Sweden, Modo hockey. Okay. And you get up there and you get on the ice, and all of a sudden you're like, I'm not the best guy here. Holy crap, there's 17 other guys that are as good or better than me, majority better than me. How do I keep up? So that's why, you pull yourself and you have a competition, you become a huge family. I mean, I still talk to them. I met them when I was 15 years old, and then we ended up playing on, the junior national teams and so forth. But I think that's the key to always have to work to get better.
Look, there's no doubt you want to try to push yourselves, and I can speak from my perspective, having a 5-year-old, and I know it sounds like a lunatic about 5-year-old travel hockey, but I can't keep my son off the ice, and it's what he loves, and that I can't teach him. And if I have to push him there, eventually I'll burn him out. And to have 8 U's and the quality of coaches that I get at the Kings, I'm getting way more value than I'm paying for. There's no doubt. But a parent who's bringing somebody down, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, somebody who's like, they're AAA level and they're thinking things as hockey's the anchor for their future. And they don't agree with the overwhelming majority. And this is a conversation that I've had, and it always boiled down to the same thing. The only thing holding those people back from moving down here was hockey. And that was because I'm speaking to Canadians or some people out in New York. But you don't get that with any other sport here, because every other sport that they're mentioning, this would be a significant jump up, meaning, basketball, football is not such a thing. I haven't had conversation. Lacrosse, gymnastics, there is uber competition here at the highest possible level where you get groomed. But when it comes to hockey, they're like, well, does the infrastructure exist? And the answer that I don't have that answer, but you're building something and working towards something that I hope will be able to answer or fill that void in the future in the Kings, because I'm also going to be interested in for my own son. Right.
I think I spoke to a friend of mine yesterday. He's been around in all kinds of sports. To be able to get good hockey, I shouldn't say it that way, is if we can have a good high school hockey. Okay. Like high school hockey, I think, is a big thing.
Does that exist here at a high level?
No. Okay. And what happens is they play our travel entity here, Seehof, and then they have a high school hockey, and then they practice. But now it becomes more games than practice. And as much as people think that games are great, and they are, and it's fun. It's fun to play. It's maybe not as fun to practice, but if you can reverse that and look forward to go practice and practice hard and leave it all on the ice for an hour and then do an extra hour or two at home almost every day, you will see that progression of how much easier it is to play the game. And now that up the level of the game situations. I think if we can all, not this is going to happen, but all get along down here and help each other out and put together that it's competitive, whatever level that is. If you do an 8-year tournament, don't like have a midget and have a major, but then don't stack teams or do. I mean, it happens everywhere. I understand it because you want to win, but you can't have Kobe come in as a 5-year-old playing against 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's A, dangerous.
Yeah.
B, it's not going to be able to.
I've had it unfortunately happen, and I pulled them.
But it goes, how it works, obviously, we like birth years. If we can have birth years of kids, and then they can stay together until they're 17, 18, 19.
Which, by the way, I have to tell you, from like the crop of, and having skated in other rinks, so I can use it as a benchmark, having the crop of kids that I see in the same birth year as Kobe, you know, at least a year apart, given the development of what they're getting right now with the Kings at Boca Ice, I think you're grooming a real team here for that's going to excel, not only compete at the highest level. The issue still becomes of like the AAA kids. Do you stay there, or can you offer them something, or will you offer them something?
I mean, we want to be able to cater to anybody who comes and want to join this. But you can't compare Florida hockey with Northeast or Midwest hockey. I mean, you go to Minnesota, you have 30, 50, 100 organizations. In state of Florida, it's 23 sheets of ice, 23 sheets, not rinks.
Right.
Sheets. And it's 22.5 million people living here. And it's about 17,000 people playing hockey. So
there is the disparity.
That's the disparity.
Right.
Do I think you can do, I mean, a lot of things are happening even in Canada, Western Canada, like people get out of the organized travel and create their own, so you can have C leagues, B leagues, A leagues, AA leagues, and so forth. Good and bad. I'm not going to go into that because I'm not involved or don't know enough about it. If you would build another 15 rinks in Florida, you would fill them. But it needs, I truly believe you would do that. But there has to be a lot of planning into it and in for the right reasons and to get the kids on this. Because I think hockey, obviously I did it for a long time, is an amazing sports that teaches you a lot of life lessons. That it's not going to be fair. Right. That you sometimes you do everything right and it's not going to work, and sometimes you're not going to play. You're going to sit. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to learn from your mistakes. And personally, I've been at the top. I've been at the bottom. I've been left the league, come back to the league. I played minors. I played up. But it is a roller coaster. But I think it helps when you get into life problems or work problems or hockey, in youth hockey. It helps you because you can take a step back and say, okay, I understand from a parent's perspective that they want the best for their kid. And what we do say to parents when we do our tryouts, which I think it's ridiculous to start.
Why? Because of having a tryout in May?
Right.
Yeah, I find that to be.
But it's one thing, like even if we do have tryouts, of course we want to be able to see kids and where do we going to do and but everybody puts their tryouts the same week. So you have seven organizations.
Let me throw that out there, but I'm telling you, I swear for the Kings, and I'm thinking this because I'm also selfish, and I want more kids that are 17 at my son's level, which I'd say is as high as it could be for his age group right now. I want them down here, and I want the Canadians, and I want the New Yorkers and Minnesotans, and I want them all down here. I think, having that tryout, if it was advertised in those places, for those parents that are thinking, maybe we want to move to South Florida, but we don't know about the hockey landscape, and bring them down here and have them, they can open tryouts and have those 300 or 400 kids try out and then be like, okay, now there is like 30 kids that can fill the team and bring them down here. Plus, when they see a state-of-the-art facility like Boca Ice's, and now I've skated every rink here, but I mean, I'm also talking about perspective from Toronto. Like Boca Ice is an incredible facility. It is like state of the art, as modern as it can be. It's cool. You don't have to worry about mold in the walls. Like, it is incredible, right? It's
a very nice building. And I think a lot of the rinks are older because they thought it was going to be more hockey than it was. I mean, you look at Edmonton, they built their airport 45 minutes an hour outside the town because they thought it was going to grow. It didn't, right? So the Glacier, as I call it, it's called Rink on the Beach right now. It's 40 years or 41 years. this year, 2023. And then you're looking at Iceland is a good 25 years old. Iceworks is, in my mind, beautiful rink, well run. It's always super clean. Now Boca came in and they really done a great job with 2 sheets. They done a great job, and you have Lake Worth, 3 rinks. So it's all here to be able to get something really done. Going back to saying, yes, let's have tryouts and have all, northern people want to come down and play here. That's great. So now we fill a team, but then if you go in as AA, though they are AAA players, you're going to, and I don't mean that a shot on any other organization, but you probably, the probability of them winning every single game, double digits, is very high.
Yeah, but like you said, when you walked into your club team in Moto, when you walked in, you were selected because when you were in the playing, you were the best then. They said, you come here. And now you're taking a step behind. But the only reason to elevate, and the only way to really elevate your game, is to be around those other players.
Oh, right. No, that's my whole, and yes, I agree with you. But I'm saying that if you put a team together that comes from Northeast, North, Midwest, Toronto, over here in Florida, and you put 2 teams together, that would be hard for other teams to be able to compete with that. So, or unless you go the tournament route, academy route, you practice 4 or 5 times a week, every month you go on a tournament and you select the tournament you want to go to. Yes, sure. But that's really not going to build hockey in Florida, right? Or maybe it will, but it will take time. And that's why we're the age group of your son and up to 8, 9, 10. If we can get them now and have Yoni, who's an amazing teacher for kids, edge work and skating. And then you have Ron Klo on there. You have, and working with the goalies with Thomas and with Volke in 4, 5, 6 years. It's very exciting times where we could be at.
So that's where I'm getting at. I mean, I see it. And I mean, when I tell parents that I speak to on the phone that are asking me about hockey, I can't give them any sort of comfort, certainty. But this really hits home. My brother had 3 boys go through, he's single, double, AAA, 1 in the O right now. And I know that if he was in my position and he needed to move or felt like he wanted to move out of Canada, he couldn't, because his sons had a trajectory in hockey. So the alternative here will feel like, he's kind of snatching away his child's dream because he wants to live closer to the beach and have a better political environment, better tax structure, and, all these other things that I can name off. But I believe that hockey here is now in its infancy. I think people are now starting to wake up to the abundance of riches in the way it's being taught on the development end, because it is overwhelming the quality of coaching that is available to kids here. So yeah, there's going to be this gap of competition for a while until I think like the first domino will fall. And when people will say, well, people in Florida actually care about hockey. You have, Stanley Cup winners, Hall of Famers, pro guys on the ice with these kids, and you got Boca Ice, which is just a happy coincidence for me because it's a state-of-the-art facility. But are here and people are like, okay, well, maybe we're not sacrificing that much. Maybe, in the short term, it might be difficult, but the competition might not be there. But it's going to take, 1 or 2 kids that are really good to set the fuse and go over to one of these travel tournaments somewhere else. And they're going to say, wait, these guys are playing in Florida. There's hockey in Florida?
Right.
I've had that conversation too on more than one occasions, but ironically, never with people wanting to move. It's with locals, which are unicorns. I'm talking about people that aren't a transplant to Florida.
But I think the interest of hockey, obviously with Tampa winning a few times the Stanley Cup, and Panthers now really being competitive and going into the playoffs. I think that really ignites and make kids really want to do, try hockey. And from I'm obviously an alumni down here in Florida, and they learn to skate. I mean, they go to all the local rinks, and it's been great attendance. And then kids come in, and then that's from there. It's very important to continue helping and be in there. And that's why I'm saying to be able to work together with that and help those kids, boys and girls, to really fall in love with the game. But we're very, we're going to do what we want to do. We're not going to tell anybody.
That you're boom, right.
Right. So we don't want to help anybody else. And I'm going, why not?
How do you overcome that? How do you get everybody at the table to say, we're all short-sighted? And that's, as a parent, talking to other parents, that's how we see it, because there's so much demand here. There's the coaching here. There's, I believe, more than enough ice here. But how do you get everyone for the greater good and the spirit of the game, which I think as a business, there's nothing wrong with it being a business, because if anyone thinks
I mean,
it's supposed to be,
like I said, if you own a rink, you buy a rink, you need to make money.
Yeah,
you get to pay your bills. I'm 100% agree with that. I think it's a better way of doing it.
What's that? If Mr. Eriksson had the perfect blueprint of how to develop South Florida with all the rinks all together,
I don't think I have a perfect plan, but I think if we can work together and
what does that mean?
Meaning that I'll put it from our, we have train kids. We do our spring development trainings, and kids come and they love it and they get better. And then they go back and play for their other team, which I totally respect, because I don't get upset. Like I said, I'm glad I had the opportunity to show you what we can do. And then they come back the year after and they do the same thing. And if I would get upset about that, I think that's wrong. I think they have an opportunity to go wherever they want to play. Maybe it's their friends, maybe it's easier to drive, maybe it's closer. Here's a program that they really, really like. And I don't mind saying, like, we can train all the kids. Like, I would love to be able to go train and help out with, as we have Power Edge Pro, to be able to go into every rink and do it. And say, hey, we're going to put this on. We do it for you kids. We can do it once a month or whatever it is.
Now, is that exclusive to the Kings? Yes. Is that how it works? Oh, so you get exclusivity over. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So,
because that's every Wednesday.
So for our organization, we did it every Wednesday, which is today. And then on a normal season, we would have that every other Saturday for the kids the teams that don't play. So we have 3 to 4 practices. But I would love to help. Like, I don't really want to coach. I want to train kids.
What's the difference?
Well, I enjoy training the kids, and I want to be able to go to any rink and say, hey, not saying I'm the best trainer or coach.
No. But what's stopping people from doing that?
It's the thing of, we're going to steal, or that will be an opportunity for kids to see what we do differently, and they're going to go play for us. And that's not my approach at all. My approach is, if you have an opportunity to add something to your program, and then why not do it? I remember when I was younger, as a Tikkanen, played a long time, played in Edmonton, played in the Rangers. He was married to a friend of mine's sister. I met him when I was very young, and it was like everybody on the team, we were like, holy crap. Right? Like, and then he said, we're going to do this. We did, skate, stop. We didn't ask questions. We're like, this is amazing. And he'd come and show you rings. And we had no idea because we were so young. I was probably 10.
Oh, wow.
9, 10 years old. And so we had other teams from the local area in my hometown came, and he helped them. I don't know if it makes sense, but in my mind, it makes sense.
To me, it actually makes sense. The way things are standing right now doesn't make sense to me.
Right. So we have, like you said, we have a lot of alumni. We have a lot of ex-NHL players who live here or have a place down here that they come and go. And I know we're working on the alumni for the Panthers and trying to get that organized so we can all get together. And then, how do we help?
Look, I said I have somewhat of a vested interest in respect that I want, my son to be playing at the highest level. He's getting the highest level coaching that I'm definitely going to be able to get him anywhere. I'll put it up against any place on earth. and I've been through the Toronto system. And I hope that like people listening to this realize that there are options, and there are really good options. And now there's also state-of-the-art facilities for them.
But that's one of the things when you ask, how do we do it together, is that don't like spread out the super simple thing. Nobody can sign anybody before August 1st. Does that happen anyway? Of course. It's youth hockey. But spread out the tryouts. Let everybody go to each organization and ask the question, what are you guys about? How many practices? What do you do? What do you think? Meet the coaches. Have a conversation with them so you can say, well, this fits my son or daughter. Right. This is good for us. Great. And then people might come to us and say, well, we don't like
You're
this.
not going to be able to.
No, you can't cater everybody, but at least if they have an opportunity, because it comes the part of the fear of losing out. And my son's got to play. No, like there shouldn't be such a pressure on parents. Kids per se, my favorite thing is kids don't do what we tell them, kids do what we do. Right? So then the kid's going to be the same way. So if we can make it more like, hey, we're going to have tryouts in the month of May for 2 weeks, right, and then spread it out, because it becomes like a competition. Like 16U is going to, everybody's going to do the same time. So now you're going to pick and choose. But if you can spread it out and let everybody go and try it out and see it is, then you have a better, you can make a better decision, I guess.
Look, I am, the reason I found out about the Kings was via an email that you called me, and come on, there's Eriksson. I'm like, oh, I'm from Toronto. I know exactly who you are. And then you had come down and, had lunch with my family, got to know my family, and just spoke to us like a person. That speaks volumes to the organization that you're a part of. We love it here. We love being there. Hockey parents, hockey dads, sports parents, there's always chatter and stuff like that. But I could tell you the overwhelming majority absolutely love it. I don't know anybody who doesn't, to be honest with you. And I think that it would be an incredible home for a lot of people looking to move to South Florida that don't understand the hockey landscape here. Like I didn't understand the hockey landscape here. And the timing for me was just extremely fortunate with the Kings and Boca Ice opening up at the same time. And for listeners that are listening to this podcast, how can they find out more about Florida Kings, and how can they bring their kids here for a skate?
Well, obviously our website, floridakingshockey.com. We have a lot of information. We like information to inform parents what we do, how we do it. And to come that, I think we have obviously a comment section or whatever it is, an email comes and it will come to me.
Okay. You're going to be the one reading it?
I read a lot of emails.
I bet. Okay.
Well, it goes to the board and the couple of the coaches, and then we're trying to be very quick with our responses. And, if it's a question regarding AGU, we will send it to their team manager and Yoni.
Right.
And 16 and so forth on down. And we have tremendous parents coming back to tell them what you said about the facility and so forth. We have really good parents, and they do listen. And when we do say like development for anything you do is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And as much as we see our kids, I have 4, 3 of my own and stepdaughter, and it's, you see, it takes time.
Yeah.
And if we let them as parents and guardians to let them fail and let them figure it out and let them do all these things, they're going to be better off. And it's really hard. Yeah. Because I look back at how I was raised, and it was hard, but it was focused. And I'm going, well, I'm not going to do that. And I'm going, well, why wouldn't I do that? Because that turned out okay.
I was just about to say.
I turned out okay.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the evolution is just that questions we ask is, when do you think development sort of stops? And we talked about this, and they go, well, he's 10 now. He needs to be best by 12. I'm like, okay, but don't skip. Don't look too far ahead. And Matt Nickel from Toronto, a really good friend of mine, I a mentor when it comes to training philosophies and how you look at things. And he trained the majority of the NHL guys. And anybody really. And he is the first one to say, I don't know. So he brings in people that can help him. And he's literally built a village now in his new facility that he has. And he has.
Does he have a facility here in South Florida?
Yeah. No, not in Florida. We're trying to get him down here, but he's a true Toronto. So from TO. But with that aspect, to development takes a long time. You can have kids that are really good by 13, 14, get into adolescent. They grow 7 inches. Now they're back 4 steps. You got to reteach yourself and the mechanics and all that stuff. So I'm looking at the same thing. You have an NHL player get drafted and goes into the NHL. It's going to take him 3, 4, 5, 6 years to really get into himself, who he is. Yes, you have the McDavid.
Yeah, okay. Well,
you have those, but a majority, like it takes you years. Yeah. So 27, 28-ish is my thought, and people that I talk to, is sort of like, okay, now from here on, it's more routine and learning, but there's still development. You're never going to stop, develop, and get better. So, but don't skip. And that's one of the things. Okay, my son is really good. Where is he going to play juniors? Well, let's finish 13, 14 first, and then see what we're going to do for 15, 16.
You can't help parents.
No, and I like it when they have it. And certain kids are really like focused on it. I'm going to the NHL. I'm like, awesome. What are we going to do? What can I do to help you? Right? Like New Amsterdam, the show on TV, like, how can I help? That's truly my favorite thing to say. Like, what do you want me to do? What can I help with? Let's do on this. And they ask questions. I said, well, if you just do little things at home, and if you do that and that and that, and one of our coaches, Joe, he sends home to his 14U team now. He had them for about 4 years. And it's tasks to do. And it becomes from make your bed every morning. You finish one task before you even went to school, before you even had breakfast.
In the morning.
Right. And then it's, okay, in school, good grades, work hard, because we believe schools, family, it's number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Hockey is 6. So if that is not working, then hockey is not going to work.
Right.
It's very, very important. And we instill that with the kids and the families. Like school and family is number 1. If you are sick and you can't come, that's okay. And if you play a different sport, great. If you're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, play 2 sports, great. I can't only make 3 out of the 4 or 2 out of the 4 practice. Good.
Right.
So we're trying to, it's a marathon. Everything we do in life is a marathon. Like what you know today that you didn't know 20 years ago or 15 years ago. I mean,
oh my God. Listen, moving down here was arguably the most difficult thing that we've ever done, outside of talking about, people deal with health challenges and stuff like that. And it'll test you. It'll test your marriage, and it'll test a lot of other things. But the one thing that is always consistent, and I'll leave it on that note, is we made a good choice with our kids' school and their athletics. And kids don't lie.
No.
If they're unhappy, if they don't want to do something, they don't do it. And they're not happy about it, and they'll tell you.
I wish I could be a kid.
Yeah, they're so sincere. And I could tell you, I've been in a couple of rinks. Even my wife says it. And definitely my son is a different kid at Boca Ice skating with the Kings. And I'm not trying to, like butter you up here. I tell you sincerely of what I think, because this is what this podcast is about. It's just about to get people out there to understand what options are available to them. And I can sincerely say that I have a very happy boy that comes home all the time. And when I take him off the ice, he says, do I have another skate?
Right. No, and I'm not going to thank you for saying those things. And the thing is, when people are not happy or they have concerns, that is what majority of the flock hears. The people that are very happy, that they feel like, this have changed my kid's life.
Yeah.
This have helped him in school. This has helped him to be more him that we know. And those are the stories that they come to me separately and tell me.
Yeah, because they're not, the other ones chirp, right? Everybody else just stays down.
But that is truly the reason I'm doing this.
Yeah.
To have that. And you can see that with the kids. And we do put a lot of work into this. Like it's a lot of planning and talking to parents and families. And it really is almost a full-time job as at the hockey director or so forth. But I mean, we know what we want to do and we're willing to do it. And we're into 5 years now. And it's, I wouldn't say getting easier, but I think we don't do a lot of advertisement. We don't do a lot of things because I like the grassroots. approach to it. So parents talk to parents.
Yeah.
And if we have good parents to talk to parents, hopefully those are, you know, you
I'm one of those parents.
Right. So then they come in and try it. And we're not everything, this is great. It's not for everybody.
Right.
And I get that. But I think with 7 organizations down in Southeast and even more up in Tampa area and Orlando, and then now new rinks coming up in Jacksonville, it's a great opportunity over the next few years for hockey in general in Florida to really flourish.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And it's very exciting.
Yeah.
And if we could build some more rinks, I think that would always be a huge help.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? Anders, you're the best. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
This is great. If anyone wants to look up the Florida Kings at Boca Ice, you know how to find them now. It's a quick Google search. And if you have any questions about hockey or moving to South Florida, feel free to contact me. Thanks, Anders.
Thank you.